Okay, hello, good evening, class.
Good evening,
Good
madam.
evening, madam.
I hope we are all doing well by His grace.
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
We thank God for giving us another Sunday. It's a pleasure to meet you once again. Please mute your microphones. I sent you some lecture slides that is on security of electronic transactions and then topologies of electronic commerce or electronic commerce technologies. For the weekend and then the evening classes too, last week because of the lights out, we couldn't meet. So I sent you the overview of electronic commerce as well. So this lecture is mainly to take questions from you and then try my best to supply you with answers. So I don't want us to waste any time. If you have any question on so far, the lecture slides I've sent you, you can raise up your hand. I'll call you and then we will look at how best to go around the answering. So anybody with a question for me? Before we move on, I almost forgot. I've sent the 10 papers, the questions for the groups. I've tasked the regular captain, Frank. I've tasked him to do the grouping for the regular class, and I've sent 12 topics or so. I don't know how many groups we can get with a regular, but at least if we have 10 people to a group, let me know the number of groups you've gotten, Frank. And then the questions I have given them according to, I've given 3 main areas for the term paper, and I've allotted the groups to the 3 areas, plus 1 general question for all groups, meaning that every group is submitting 2 main term papers. 2 main term papers. So please take notes of that and then do accordingly. The deadline for submission is the last week of lectures for this semester. I'll take them the last week of lectures. So please work on them and let me have them. All right, so I'm ready to take questions from you. Okay, so it looks like I'm not getting anybody. So what I'll do briefly, is I'm briefly going to summarize the 2 lecture slides I sent to you. I'm briefly going to summarize them so that if you don't ask any question, maybe the question you are having in your head will be answered. So I sent you 2 main slides. One was on electronic commerce topologies. And then I made mention of the fact that when we talk about electronic commerce topologies, we are simply referring to the technologies that come to play in order to help with electronic commerce. That is those technologies that aid electronic commerce, just like we saw under technologies that aid electronic banking, we have technologies that aid electronic commerce as well. But one amazing thing is that all the technologies that aid electronic banking can be found under the technologies that aid electronic commerce, because I've already told you that electronic banking itself is part of electronic business. You see, for the sake of the weekend and then the evening class, let me briefly summarize over the overview of electronic commerce that we did. Now, under the overview of, before I come back to the topologies, under the overview of electronic commerce, we saw that when we talk about e-commerce, we are simply referring to the trading or the buying and selling of goods and services over the internet. That is the most popular one, or you can say with the aid of some form of computer and other systems. You see, electronic commerce is the buying and selling of goods and services online. Now, we saw that e-commerce actually can be divided into 5 main divisions. 5 main divisions. We saw e-tailing, that is the buying and selling aspects of electronic commerce. We saw market research. We learned that it is not always about buying and selling of electronic goods and services, but sometimes organizations capitalize on the information they get by trading online, and then they use the information to learn more about their customers in order to produce goods and services that will satisfy the needs of their customers. So market research was the second division. We saw email and email, fax, and internet telephony. We also saw that electronic commerce too, now email, internet telephony, and then fax, they all aid with electronic commerce, because sometimes you'll be there, you receive some mail from some people who are into the production or the buying and selling of some goods. Sometimes you receive the mail as spam. That is spam, those messages you've not subscribed to. Sometimes it can be an opt-in mail. That is the messages or those messages you have subscribed to. And the internet telephony too, sometimes you'll be there, you receive phone calls from some company advertising their products. Some even come in the form of text messages, etc., etc. Now, fax, we know fax is, somehow fading because of the advancement of technology. So that is the third division. We saw EDI. And then I made mention of the fact that EDI is actually how electronic commerce started. EDI is like some kind of software which helps the organization to be able to transact electronic commerce. It's a software that the organizations use to communicate with their customers. It's a form of what we call, how do we call it? An extranet. It's an example of an extranet. Extranet, I'll talk about that very soon under the topologies of electronic commerce. So that is also, EDI is also another division. And then we saw security of electronic transactions. And I made mention of the fact that with the security is a topic we will come to a topic itself. So normally I don't talk about that under the overview. Then we came to look at electronic business, and we saw that electronic business is actually conducting business with electronics. And I made mention of the fact that e-business, a lot of debates was going on out there concerning whether electronic business is found within electronic commerce. And then later, the research that have been produced so far shows that e-commerce is within e-business. E-business is the bigger picture. So in trying to even show the relationship, we saw that e-business is a subset, e-commerce is a subset of e-business, whilst e-business is a superset. And then I also gave you the differences between electronic commerce and then electronic business, which you can read more on that later. And then we saw the models. We saw there are 4 main models That explains electronic business. What we call the business to business electronic business. That's the first one, where we have businesses conducting business among themselves via online. That is, for instance, if a business needs another business to undertake a particular service on its behalf, and then the correspondence between them is done online. I made mention of the fact that under business to business, we are not looking at where one business needs a service to be conducted by another business, or they want to buy something from another business, and then they go physically to their physical location. That is not e-business. E-business only comes into the picture when the correspondence between the businesses are done online. That is, for instance, if UPSA needs Oracle. Oracle is a software producing company. If UPSA needs a software to be produced by Oracle, and then UPSA contacts Oracle via electronic means, they do all the correspondence, then there's a transfer of money from UPSA to, how do we call it, to Oracle, and then Oracle delivers. The delivery does not necessarily have to be online. The delivery can be done physically, you see. So when the delivery is done, that is when we say that there has been a business to business, you know, form of electronic business. That is one model that explains electronic business. Then we saw business to consumers, B2C. And under business to consumers, we saw that that is where businesses transact business with customers or consumers directly. So for instance, if you go to Jumia as a customer and then you place an order there, you know, Jumia is a virtual mall. We have a lot of businesses advertising their products there. So if you go to Jumia and then you place an order with a particular business, and then you make payment, they do delivery. That is a form, that falls under business to consumer. The business transaction has taken place between you, the consumer, and the business. So it falls under B2C. Then we have what we call it? We have consumer to business. Is it correct? Consumer to business. My people, I'm coming. Let me admit some people. They have been waiting for a long time. Okay. Hi. They don't stop coming. All right, so we have consumer to business as well. Oh, I took this thing off. Okay, so we have consumer to business, and the consumer to business, we saw that this is where business transaction takes place between the consumer and the business. Don't be confused with the B2C and the C2B. With the B2C, we have, for instance, where the business sells directly to the consumer, like the example I gave with Jumia. So if you place an order at Jumia, the business sells directly to you, the consumer. But under consumer to business, it is the consumer who sells directly to the business. Consumer sells directly to the business via online. So for instance, if I have a property that I'm selling, maybe I have a house and I'm selling, I advertise it online, and then maybe a particular bank sees the property, they are interested in it. So they contact me online, we do our correspondence online, they do physical verification of the property, and then finally they decide to take the property, they pay me. The payment can be transfer of money directly into my bank account. That is an example of consumer to business. Here, the consumer has, transacted business directly with the business. That is C to B. And then we have C to C. C to C, that is consumer to consumer. And with the consumer to consumer, we learned that this is where consumers trade among themselves. Consumers, they trade among themselves. An example of consumer to consumer sort of trading, we can see it, examples include the transactions that take place, for instance, Tonaton. You remember how Tonaton used to be. Now it is no longer conforming to the consumer to consumer sort of, model, because now we have businesses advertising for consumers to purchase. You get it? But if you remember Tonaton, when it started and OLS, consumers were placing their second-hand items online. Like you have something that you are no longer in need of. You place it there, and then another consumer will see it, the person will be interested, the person will contact you, and then you take it from there. You get it? So that is how the consumer to consumer module works. But there's something I didn't mention. Under the business to consumer model, we saw two main types of businesses that exist under business to consumer model. That is the pure click businesses and then brick and click businesses, or click and mortar businesses. It is pure click and brick and click, or click and mortar. No, under pure click, we are looking at those businesses which only exist online. Those businesses which only exist online. Everything I'm telling you, I'm just summarizing the notes I have sent to you. And everything I'm telling you is in the notes. So please, don't worry. Everything I'm saying is in the notes. So under the pure click, or the pure click businesses, they are those businesses which exist only in the clouds, or you can say which only have online presence or existence. They do not have physical location. So there's nowhere you will find a location of the particular business that you can go to, but then they have their existence online. We have, in the advanced countries, we have banks and other businesses which have which are only pure click. They only have online existence. They have their workers spread around the globe, but they don't have physical location. Those businesses are the pure click. And then the brick and click type of businesses, they are the businesses which have both online presence and physical presence. And the brick and click, we can have thousands and millions of examples of such businesses. Example, our own university is an example of brick and click. UPSA is physically, is present online and also has physical presence. UPSA is present online and also has physical presence. So under the brick and click, you will see that all businesses with websites and other social media presence, they are all brick and click businesses. The various banks, the various universities, private businesses, government businesses, etc., are all brick and click businesses. So this is a summary of the overview of electronic commerce that I sent the regular lecture I had with them to the weekend in the evening. So back to the e-commerce topologies, the summary too. Now, with the e-commerce topologies, like I started, they are those technologies that aid electronic commerce. And I made mention of the fact that all the various technologies that we saw under electronic banking, they all fall under the electronic commerce technologies as well, because E-commerce itself is an example of electronic business. But when it comes to, in technical terms, that what I just mentioned is in general terms. But technically speaking, there are only 3 main topologies or technologies that are much concerned when it comes to electronic commerce and electronic business. They include 1, the internet, 2, the intranet, and 3, the extranet. So we have the internet, the intranet, and the extranet. Now, with the internet, it is by far the topology that has a global reach. It has a global reach in the sense that the internet can be found in almost every part of the world. And the internet, everybody at all in any part of the world can have access to the internet. You get it? So the internet is by far the most biggest platform or technology of electronic commerce. So we try to see how the internet works. And then we learned that the internet actually works with the help of protocols. I told you under the electronic commerce overview, under the history, that when Tim Berners-Lee wrote a paper about the World Wide Web in 1989, and this paper was accepted in 1990. So in 1990, we had the birth of the World Wide Web, popularly known as the internet. Now, when he invented the World Wide Web, it took the world 4 years before the World Wide Web was able to be used, because it took the world 4 years to develop the protocols that enabled the World Wide Web or the internet to function. Without protocols, the internet will be useless. And so if you listen to the notes, there's a voiceover on it, so it makes listening very easy. What am I even saying? The protocols, we learned that when we talk about protocols and the internet, they are those, software that enable, or you can say the systems that enable the internet to understand each other. You see, I started with an example in the notes that as humans as we are, we only understand ourselves if we speak in a common language. The same goes for the computers. They are able to understand themselves very well when they speak in a common language. So before a message sent from your computer will get to the recipient's computer, they must speak in a common language. And that common language they speak is what we call the protocols. We saw some examples of protocols, and I made mention of the fact that in this class under electronic banking and electronic commerce, we are only interested in the first one, that is the TCP/IP. The TCP stands for Transmission Control Protocol, and the IP stands for Internet Protocol. Now, we saw that the TCP/IP is actually 2 main protocols that have been paired as one. The TCP, or the transmission control part of TCP/IP protocol, is in charge of what we call data transportation. And the IP part is in charge of what we call routing and addressability. So data transportation, we learned that under data transportation, there are 2 main systems that take place. What we call the circuit switching and then the packet switching. And I made mention in the notes that the circuit switching is normally the system that is used by the telecommunication companies because it is used for voice transportation, And then the packet switching is what is used for the data transportation. That is what the internet uses the most. I also said that now with internet telephony and all that, now the internet seems to be using both, because we use the internet to place live, live call, how do we call it? Live conversation or whatever. So this part, that's the TCP part, is what ensures data transportation when it comes to how the internet works. And then we have the routing and addressability, which falls under the IP. And I made mention of the fact that with routing, that is where the best routes for the data transportation is chosen. So the routing is in charge of determining the best route for the message to be used, to be transported to the final destination, which is the address. The address is just a 32-bit numbers, which ranges from 0 to 255. So we have this address system for the internet, which is normally in numerics. But as humans as we are not comfortable with numerics. It is difficult recalling numerics more than recalling words. So normally, our internet addressing system, we use words for them. But then when you put in the words in the URL section of your browser, the computer does not recognize the word version of the address. The computer or the internet only recognizes the numeric aspect. So how do we convert this address system from the word version to the numerics? That is where the DNS, domain name server, or the domain name system comes to play here. Now, for instance, UPSA, our internet address is upsa.edu.gh. Now, one thing you need to know is that the 32-bit number, which ranges from 0 to 255, there has been some sort of expansion because the number was a bit limited. So over the years, they were trying to, get it expanded. I'm sure by now that is done. Those who know a lot about some of these things, that's the internet and how it operates, you can later on share that with us. Now, so when I key in upsa.edu.gh, the computer or the internet does not understand this address system. So this address system too is in this 32-bit number address. The figures are there. So as soon as I key it into the URL section, then the domain name server will convert it from upsa.edu.gh to some numerics like maybe 185.169, etc., etc. Sometimes if you key in an address, you see that when it is, when the browser is trying to take you to the location, you see it turned into some form of numerics. That is what I'm talking about. So the addressing system and then the routing and then the transportation is done by the TCP/IP. So that is the internet, which is the first topology. And I've told you that it is very risky because when you are online, you are a bit vulnerable, very, very vulnerable, because the internet has a global reach. Then we have the intranet. One thing you need to know about the intranet is that it facilitates internal communication within the organization. It is only used within the organization. So people who are workers of the organization are the only people who have access to the intranet. If you are an outsider, there's no way you can have access to the intranet. What the intranet does is that it helps facilitate internal communication between staff of a particular organization, so that if your boss needs you to do something for him, he wouldn't have to get up from his office to your office or to wherever you sit. He will just send you a message via the internet that Benedicta, get me this file. Then you see a message pop up, you read, then you do accordingly. That is how the intranet works. And I also made mention of the fact that in the notes that we use firewall to restrict certain aspects of the internet for us to get the intranet. So firewall blocks the intranet certain aspect for only the aspect that is to be used internally, to be retained. And the firewall block access to external people who are not part of the organization. Then we have the extranet. The extranet too is used, or it helps facilitate communication between the organization on one hand and some defined group of people outside the organization on the other hand. Remember what I just said. I said some defined group of people, which means that if you are not part of the defined group of people who is outside the organization, you cannot be part of the organization's extranet. The defined group of people may include customers, business partners, suppliers, etc. of the organization. So there will be this software or system which will help the organization to communicate directly with its partners outside the organization, or with its customers outside the organization, or with its suppliers outside the organization. This also helps suppliers and customers. For instance, if a customer needs to place order, the customer with access to the extranet, you just key in, you go into the system, you key in your password, and it takes you directly to the organization. You place your order, they'll respond to your order. So that is the extranet. And these are the three main topologies that comes to play for electronic commerce stroke electronic business to happen. Then I also sent you notes on security of electronic transactions. I told you that when it comes to electronic transactions, or when it comes to conducting trading online, security is a key thing, because once you are online, you are very vulnerable. So if you are not well protected, anybody at all can hack into the system and then do away with some most sensitive information, which can cause harm to the organization. So normally you see businesses who conduct transactions online investing in highly encrypted systems or softwares, security systems, to help protect their secured information. In this class, I told you that we are going to learn about the three main basic security systems that we can have in place to protect our online transactions. These three main systems are the foundation, or they are the basis upon which all the stronger security systems have been built. Now, the three are access control, firewall, and then the last one is encryption. Now, with access control, we learned that here we try, these are the security systems that try to limit access to the organization's information. So normally, you see that in an organization, Peter Brony, if you have a question for me, don't worry, I'll take it very soon. I'm just summarizing. I'll wrap up soon. I'll finish soon. So in an organization, there's, how do we call it? It is not easy. The way I'm tired. In an organization, normally you see that if you want to have access to certain parts or certain information, you'll be required to supply your password, or for instance, let's use an email. Before you can log on into your own email, you normally the system will require you to supply your email address, followed by your password. if you don't supply this email address and the password, there's no way you can have access to your own email account. So email address, password is an example of access control mechanism. Sometimes too, in an organization, there are some places that they may restrict access, physical access. So before you can get into the room like the vault, you may need to maybe show a badge or something to give you access. All these are part of access control mechanisms. And also these biometrics. Before you can maybe access a particular software or system, you may be required to place your thumb somewhere for the system to recognize your thumb before you be given access. So access control is a basic security mechanism that can help us to protect our most sensitive information. Then the second one is firewall. In fact, firewall is a very important security system because firewall actually restricts access, or it stands in between the organization and the outside world. So it blocks all the unauthorized access that tries to, tamper with the organization's data. It blocks them. It blocks the outside world or people who are unauthorized to have access to the organization's most sensitive data from having access to the data. So firewall, just like the name goes, it's like a wall with fire around it. So if you do not, or if you are not allowed to cross, and then you try to cross by all means, the fire will burn you. That's the literal meaning anyway. That is just by the way. But one thing you need to know about the firewall is that it restricts access. It restricts access. So every information that goes out of the organization or comes into the organization is screened by firewall. So those which are not supposed to come in or go out, firewall will block them. In our laptops, we have firewall. If your firewall is on, the perception is that nobody can attempt breaking into your most sensitive information. But that is just by the way. Hackers always find their way out anyway. But at least the perception is that once your firewall is there, you are somehow protected. So firewall is another security mechanism. Then the last one is encryption. And with encryption, this is actually the process of, changing the meaning of a message so that when it falls into someone who is not supposed to have access to the message will be meaningless. Only the person the message is intended for will be able to understand the message as it is intended, because when a message is encrypted, it means that the message has been locked. The message has been locked with the sender's key, which is normally a public key. So this message is locked with a particular code. That is, if you encrypt a message, it means you've locked it. Now, the sender of the message will have to give the key to the recipient, so that when the recipient gets the message, the recipient will use the key to unlock the message in order to get the meaning as it's intended. So that in between the time the message is sent to from the sender to the recipient, if anybody tries to intercept the message, the person will see the message as gobbledygook, like I told you. It becomes, meaningless. You see boxes, and some www or hhhhh. I mean, words that, letters that are not meaningful. That is what you see. That is if you are not the one the message is intended for. But the one who is supposed to receive the message with the key can use the key to decrypt the message, and the person will read and understand the message as intended. So encryption is also another technology or another security system which can be used to protect data. So these are the three main security systems I sent to you. Now that I've given you the lead way, you can ask question if you have any question. Any question?
Madam.
Yes, my dear.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Can you please mention the 3 security systems again, please?
Yes, there are 3 security systems. One is access control. 1 is access control. 2 is firewall. Firewall, that is fire plus wall. So FIREWALL, firewall. And then the last one is encryption. 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 Please, they are all in the slides I sent to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Any other questions? The slides I sent actually comes with a voice. I have lectured on them. So please, if you receive it, try and then, how do you even call it in PowerPoint? Display it. If you display it, you hear my voice. I'm actually speaking to the slides like I'm lecturing you in class.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay. Any other question? So today's, someone has requested I put this on YouTube. So this evening, I'll put today's lecture, what the summary I just gave you. I'll put it on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. Subscribe to my channel so that every time I place a video, you will have access to it. When I place this on YouTube channel, I'll send you the link so that you can go and watch it on YouTube.
Madam.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Welcome. Any more questions? Or
No,
if you are okay, we can close. I'm sure we are all tired.
Hello, madam. Madam, good evening.
Yes,
good evening,
madam.
my dear.
Yes, madam.
Madam,
evening,
please,
my dear.
the slide that you sent, the voice is not coming. I don't know if it is from my phone.
The voice is not coming.
Yes, please. Madam, it's not coming.
Gabriel speaking, right? Gabriel.
Yes, please.
Okay, they come to, okay, let me just demonstrate something, okay? Let's see. Let me see it here. I'm sure they come. Once you see the volume sign on it, once you see the volume sign on it, then it means that there's a voice in it. Gabriel, do you see the volume sign on the slides?
Yes, please, madam, I can see.
So once the volume sign is there, it means there's a voice on it.
Madam, this particular one is not coming. Remember, you sent some previously, and that one too was not working. And really? I even told you about it.
But when I play it at my end here, it comes so.
Please, can somebody confirm it for me if it is from my phone or?
I'm surprised because once.
Madam.
Yes.
Madam, please, the thing is when you are using a mobile phone, you are not able to.
Oh, okay. Gabriel.
Unless you are using a laptop or a computer.
Gabriel, so please, have you heard him? Please try it on your laptop and see. Have you heard him? Please try it on your laptop and see.
Okay, madam, let me open it on my laptop and see.
All right. Okay. So you whatever be the case, let me know. Okay, so that if I have to resend it to you, I'll do that. Please, any more questions?
No, madam.
All right. Then we will end here. Like I said, I'll place today's recording on my YouTube channel, so I'll send you the link. You go there and you can listen to the summary I just gave for the 3 topics. And I'll see you again next week. I'll communicate with the various captains. I'll send you a voiceover note again on the next topics. Maybe by Tuesday. By Tuesday, I'll get them ready for you. I wish you all the best.
Thank you, madam.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Wish you.
Hello, madam.
Same to you,
Madam, I'll
madam.
call you after the class.
Okay,
Yo,
all right. Okay,
Hey.
okay.
Okay, bye, madam.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.